sample Chicken by Travis Audacity. Pretty sure they don't really know what they're talking about.
I'm Laura London, and this is a special quarantine edition of Speaking of Jung. Everything Jung wrote was based on an experience. Jungian psychology isn't about ideas, it's about experiences. This quarantine series is based on my personal experiences with interesting people. Joining us for the 18th episode in this series is the CEO of the BTS ARMY Help Center, Carla Postma-Slabbekoorn, in the Netherlands. A married mother of two, she works in finance as a mortgage specialist and devotes her spare time to supporting and encouraging fellow members of the BTS ARMY through the worldwide efforts of the ARMY Help Center. For the listeners who are not familiar with BTS, they are currently the most popular musical group in the world. They performed at this year's Grammy Awards, where they were nominated for Best Pop Duo or Group Performance. Two of their latest singles reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and in December of last year, Time magazine named them their 2020 Entertainer of the Year. BTS officially stands for Bangtan Sonyeondan, which translates to Bulletproof Boy Scouts. In 2017, they changed the official acronym to Beyond the Scene, Protecting Youths from Prejudice. The name signifies the group's desire to block out stereotypes, criticisms, and expectations that aim at adolescents like bullets. Fans of BTS are known as ARMY, which stands for Adorable Representative MC for Youth. Listeners of this podcast will recall that in 2019, we began a series of episodes with Jungian analyst Murray Stein in Zurich, Switzerland. It was when his book, Jung's Map of the Soul, was trending on Twitter, as the title of BTS's comeback album, Map of the Soul Persona, was announced. Dr. Stein has joined us for 7 episodes of Speaking of Jung, where we've discussed his book in episode 42, Jung's concept of the persona in episode 44, the shadow in episode 53, and the ego in episode 54, BTS's follow-up album, Map of the Soul 7, in episode 55, their Japanese album, Map of the Soul The Journey, in episode 67, and their latest album, B, in episode 77. Links to those episodes and Dr. Stein's new books about BTS, published in collaboration with Chiron Publications, can be found on Speaking of Jung's BTS page. The BTS ARMY Help Center, or AHC as it's called, was founded in 2018 when the original founder became aware of the pressures that ARMY was under. With the iHeart Music Awards show being one of the many award ceremonies that require massive online voting, ARMY dedicated every bit of their time in order to finish the daily voting quota, and some of them even gave up their sleep in doing so. This obviously has an effect on someone's mental health, and signs that some ARMY were stressed out about this emerged on social media. Inspired by BTS's messages of self-love and radical kindness, an idea grew. It was to create an account with a small group of volunteers from around the world, preferably with a background in psychology or counseling, to try to take away a bit of the worries and stress from ARMY. AHC opened up their DMs, and ARMY found them fast. So fast that the team of 10 people quickly grew to a large and diverse group of volunteers, currently over 200, from all around the world. With a team of dedicated members working together, AHC allowed the fandom to grow closer than ever by sharing their happiness, fears, and worries. Not to forget the everlasting enthusiasm they have for BTS in whichever language they feel comfortable in. AHC's mission is to provide a listening ear to those who need one without providing therapy, and to educate ARMY about mental health-related issues. In January 2020, AHC partnered up with Crisis Text Line, a text-based hotline, further expanding their service to Army in need. The Army Help Center has 20 official Twitter accounts and an Instagram account. DMs are only open on Twitter for now. They are looking into expanding their services to Facebook, TikTok, and email, and are currently in the process of training new volunteers to help with the goals they've set out for themselves. And they are also working on creating a website. On top of this community is a management team led by our guest today, Carla Postma-Slabbekoorn, who serves as CEO. Other members of the management team are Tiffany Helton in the USA, who is their HR manager, Deborah Koningverander, help me out, Carla.
Koningverander.
In Ireland, who serves as CFO, Rupal Kaura in India, who serves as the psychology manager, Tanzila Khan, is that correct? In India, who's their content manager, Esmi El Mansari in Morocco, who serves as project manager, Sharon
Mailankai
in Indonesia, who serves as public relations and account manager, Indonesia, and Laura Devis Torres in Spain, who serves as public relations and account manager in Spanish. In December 2020, it was estimated that over all the accounts of AHC, they received 30,000 direct messages. Please visit the website speakingofjung.com, where you will find links to everything discussed in this episode in the show notes. This interview is being recorded on Wednesday, May 12th, 2021, through the magic of Skype. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Laura.
Thank you so much for joining us here today for this very special episode that, we should have done a long time ago. And it is actually coinciding with a huge time in the world of BTS as they have announced that they have a new single coming out on the 21st of this month called Butter.
Butter, yes. Thank you for having me, first and foremost. And yes, we are gearing up to a new song and album, I guess, for BTS. So we're looking forward to that, definitely.
So we want to talk about BTS, but we're really here today to talk about the BTS ARMY Help Center. So I read that really long intro to give the listeners who are not familiar background with why BTS has been such a big part of Speaking of Jung. It has become such a big part that I've created a separate page on Speaking of Jung's website dedicated just to BTS and to all the BTS episodes we've done and material. But this is all in thanks to you, because you were the first person to reach out to me. And I know I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. And then I'd like to hear your side of it. I've always known who Murray Stein was, because he's probably one of the most famous, if I could use that word, Jungian analysts in the world. He used to live here in the United States, here in Chicago, and he relocated to Zurich, Switzerland. And actually, the first time I met him was in Zurich at his office in 2015. And I'd always known about his book, Jung's Map of the Soul. So I was on Twitter one day, and I like to be on Twitter on my computer. And so I had my big web browser open, and over on the side, it shows you what's trending. And it said Map of the Soul. And I saw that was trending, and I thought, what? And I immediately thought of Dr. Stein's book, Jung's Map of the Soul. And I thought, no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. And then I saw it again, and I thought, I'm going to reach out to him and let him know, because I like to do that. And hey, look at this. So before I got a chance to do that, I got a DM, and I mentioned DMs before. For those who are not familiar, on Twitter, you can send someone a private message directly. So it's called a direct message, or DM for short. And you sent me one introducing yourself and I don't even remember what it said. It seems like it was so long ago now. It was 2 years ago. Do you remember?
2 years ago. I remember clearly what it was because, of course, we are like you said in your perfect intro, that we are a group based with a lot of psychologists. We do have a lot of psychologists on our team and a lot of students of psychology. So they are, I don't have background in psychology at all or in Jungian theory either. That's all foreign to me. But they were aware of the book Map of the Soul by Dr. Stein. So when the name of the album from BTS dropped, I had a lot of volunteers who were geeking out a little bit. They were really enthusiastic and like, oh my God, this is the book. And, we already knew it was being sold on the Big Hit website, the company for BTS. So we knew that, and they were really enthusiastic. And, and I always call them my smart people. They were like, talking really fast and being really enthusiastic. So I said, okay, we as a group of volunteers of ARMY who are interested in psychology and mental health, maybe this is an opportunity for us to do something with that. Maybe we can explain a little bit of what is, the work of Carl Jung, in layman terms to ARMY who are probably unfamiliar with, anything regarding that. So they were immediately storming off and brainstorming. And since I don't have a background in this at all, I just gave them a Google Drive to work on. And I also said, okay, what else can I do to contribute to this project? So the plan was to just reach out to people I could find and ask them, okay, if we explained a little bit about this and ARMY wants to know more about the subject, where should they go? What are some resources we can provide them with? Where should they go to read more about it? Where can they learn more if it's something that interests them? So I went on a search, and one of the first people I found was you, because you, of course, have this podcast, and I listened to it, and at first it was a little bit overwhelming to me because I don't have that background. Sure. So I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna send you a message and ask you, like, okay, what if someone wants to learn more but has no prior knowledge of this subject? Where should they start? And do you have maybe an episode which you could recommend where they can start for younger people? Because I know Jungian psychology is not necessarily something a lot of young people are really interested in.
Right.
I mean, traditionally, I think it's also you that explained that to me as well. Usually people tend to be a bit older than the typical ARMY is, I think. Of course, there's no age limit to being an ARMY, but if we're talking about 20, 25, that's not normally the target group for
right.
Jungian
And I would just
psychology.
I'd just like to jump in here to clarify. It's just that Jung psychology is typically for people who are in the second half of life because it deals with second half of life issues. But that's not necessarily true, is what I've been told. I entered into analysis when I was in my 20s. I interviewed another analyst who began when she was in her 20s, and this has helped open up this world to younger people. So I just wanted to add that. So please continue.
And I don't think it's something that's set in stone that you have to be of a certain age, but typically younger people were not interested maybe in this just yet. So I just asked you, hey Laura, where to start? So that's what I've sent you basically, and you were all immediately really open and nice and welcoming and really intrigued, I think, as well, like what's going on. Right. So we got to talking. So that's what happened on my side.
That's what happened on your side. And I don't think you had seen that I had done an episode with Murray Stein.
I didn't. No, I didn't know that. No.
Back in 2015. And because this was all happening in the early spring of 2019 that you and I connected, I think I put you in touch with Dr. Stein, right?
You did. Yeah, that was really a bit of a surprise to us, I think, as well. We were surprised by that because you just dropped it on me, basically. You just said, okay, yeah, Dr. Stein, I told him about this and he's really interested, enthusiastic. So here's his email and you can contact him. And we were a bit starstruck.
Oh, well, he's like that.
Point.
He is a very, very kind and generous man, and we all love him. So Dr. Stein and I had the idea to do an episode about that book of his. It's titled Jung's Map of the Soul, an Introduction, and I believe it was published back in 1998. Mm-hmm. And that book in Korean, translated into Korean, was being sold on BTS's management company. It was called Big Hit Entertainment. They just changed their name to Hybe.
Yeah. I still have to get used to it.
I know
it'll be Big Hit in my my mind probably for a long time.
Mine too. Mine
Hybe.
too. Very unusual name, Hybe. And it was being sold on their website they had like a little merchandise page or a little bookstore, just a couple of books.
Yeah, I think 3 books or something like that. Just a small amount. Yeah.
Right. And so Jung's Map of the Soul was being sold on their website, and they had just announced the title of their new album. And that's how this was all new to me, how they structure these releases. They do all this teasing, and it makes it very exciting. It really gets you looking forward to it, and all this energy builds and builds and builds before the release. And so the title of it actually wasn't a full-length album. It was, I think they call them, was it an EP or a mini album? It was only 7 tracks.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if it's officially a mini album.
Well, that's why we were expecting those follow-ups. Right?
Exactly.
So, and we'll get into that. So it was titled Map of the Soul Persona. And so there was all this interest in what is a persona. So we did a follow-up episode just on the persona. And then Dr. Stein went through each of the 7 tracks on Map of the Soul Persona to look at them from a Jungian standpoint. What are they saying here? And that's another thing about BTS, which I hope we get into, is their lyrics. So, as I said, we're here to talk about Army Help Center, and we're getting to that. I wanted to first lay the foundation of why Army exists and why there's an Army Help Center. So there is so much activity on Twitter. So the Army Help Center is based on Twitter, and everything you and I are talking about happened on Twitter.
Yep. Yeah. I think BTS has always been very active on Twitter or on social media. They come from, well, I think it's the biggest, K-pop company in Korea. But when they began, it was a small company. So they didn't have a lot of money to do a lot of promotions. They didn't have a lot of opportunities to go on shows in Korea to promote their songs. So what they did is they moved to social media, and they did it themselves. So they did a lot of the work themselves on social media and on Twitter. So that's where a lot of their fans are as well, where they get to interact. They can show, their they tweet something, and if they tweet something now, I think it has like a million or 2 million retweets within like, I don't know, an hour. I'm not even sure how fast it goes nowadays, but it's insane how many people are just watching them on Twitter. So a lot of their fans, like myself, we are on Twitter to keep up with what they are putting out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the BTS is very active on Twitter, and when this first started, I hadn't heard of them. I didn't know anything about them, so I familiarized myself, and it coincided with, as I said, the release of their album Map of the Soul Persona and a tour, a worldwide stadium tour, and they were coming here to the United States. And so this all happened with you sending me the message. That was in March of 2019. And then in April, now I'm losing track of time, they came to Chicago and I went to their concert. And then maybe that was in May. And then in June, you went to Paris to see that same tour. And you and I did, it's on YouTube. I was watching it yesterday. You and I did a short video interview. You were outside the stadium with other members of the Army Help Center before a few hours before the concert. And I was here in my studio where I record this podcast, where I am now. And so there's a split screen. You're on one side, I'm on the other. And it was so much fun. And I'll provide a link to that in the show notes. So how many BTS concerts have you attended?
I've been to 3 so far. One in 2018, also in Paris.
Okay.
And the other ones were both in 2019. I actually went both nights. So I went on the day that I talked to you. And I think that was on the first night. And I went the second night as well. So on different seats, of course, in the stadium. But yeah, I've been to 3. And then, of course, the whole pandemic happened. So there have been no concerts since that tour. Yeah,
we were all planning on seeing them last year. Yeah. And that was, they were scheduled to be here, I think, in June of 2020. And those concerts were postponed. And then, unfortunately, they were canceled. But I'm sure they will be back very soon. So when you were at that concert and you and I did that video, you showed, and you can see it in the video, you guys had the banner, the Army Help Center banner. So tell us about that.
Yeah, we, of course, consist of a lot of volunteers, and not everyone is actually answering the messages we are getting. So we do have people who work in graphic design, and we have writers, and we do have some tech developers and people with other roles than actually talking to Army. So of course, to make a presence on Twitter as well, you have to have a logo. So we took the BTS and the Army logo and we made it our own. We added some wings to that because we feel like we are sometimes taking Army under our wings a little bit, and because we are providing a space for them where they can be themselves, where they can vent out their problems, where they can have someone who will listen to them, because that's not available to everyone everywhere. So we can do that for them. So that's why we added some wings to the logo, and we had made a flag of that in the past, and we are just dragging it around when we go to concerts, and it's really it's a nice thing, because what happened is I think on both times that we went to Paris, when we were dragging this flag around, was that people will recognize it from Twitter. So we've had people coming up to us and just telling us like, oh, we've seen you on Twitter. I've been speaking to one of your volunteers, and thank you so much, and it's so nice, and just getting in contact face to face with people who make use of your service, and that's really gratifying. I think it gives you a good feeling about what you're doing, and it's also a bit of promotion, of course, because we do want to make more people aware that we are here and what we can provide them with. We are, of course, not providing them with therapy. We really want to stray away from that a bit, because that's a bridge too far for us, for what we can do. But we do want to provide a safe space for them, and that's something that a lot of people need. And so we use our flag and our logo and basically all those tools to just make our presence known and to get more Army to be aware that they have a place they can go to if they want to.
Yeah, be aware that you exist. So let's get into that. Exactly what do you provide to ARMY? And I would like to say that you've provided it to me too when I was in need. So tell us a little bit about what you do, and then I'll tell my story about how you helped me.
Yeah, well, we have, like we said, we opened our DMs. People, sometimes you need someone to just talk to, someone to confide in, someone to listen to you. And unfortunately, not everyone has someone in their life or has opportunities to speak to someone. There are multiple reasons why people don't have that accessible to them. Reasons can be that they live in a country where mental health is really, a big there's a big stigma on mental health. So their parents maybe will tell them like, okay, just go to sleep, and when you wake up, you'll feel better. So they will not take mental health struggles seriously. And I'm not saying that everyone is like has a mental illness, because that's, of course, is not the same thing. But everyone struggles sometimes, and so everyone needs someone at some point to just confide in. If you have someone in real life where you can just be yourself and talk to, that's perfect. But not everyone has that. And for those who just need someone anonymous as well, where they can confide in and tell them everything that's bothering them and everything they are struggling with, they can just send us a direct message, and we have all sorts of messages. So we do take it really seriously. We do have like a lot of training for our volunteers before they are able to speak to the people reaching out to us. So that's what like my whole psychology team is for as well. So we do have a big training program for the volunteers, because we feel honored that they are reaching out to us, that they confide in us, that we feel proud that they trust us enough with their issues and their really private problems or struggles sometimes. So we feel like if you are taking this step to confide in us, to come to us, to open up to us, we need to take this as serious as we can. But we will always make sure that all parties know that we are not their therapist, because that's just a step too far for what we can do. So everyone, when we start a conversation, everyone will know that this is not therapy. We will not provide you with solutions, but we will listen and maybe provide a different viewing point. We do have, of course, some questions we can ask someone to get to their own insights a little bit. So there is, we did, borrow some tools from psychology and from psychologists on how we can establish that with our followers who will reach out to us. But we really want to make sure that everyone knows that if you really need a therapist, we will definitely urge you to go find someone who is a bit more knowledgeable than us, who has more experience than some of us have, or is in your area, or who you can meet face to face. But we've noticed that a lot of people came back to us and told us that coming to us was their first step, because it's really scary to talk about yourself and about your own issues. And maybe it's a little bit easier when you're speaking to someone who's anonymous, and you can hide behind your own Twitter user. So I will not know your name for sure unless you tell me. And we don't know you. We don't know where you live. Sometimes we're in a completely different country. And what we all have in common, though, is that we are all ARMY. So we always have like something to break the ice, something to start a conversation with, something to make our followers feel comfortable opening up. So we start with that, and then they can talk about why they reached out to us. And sometimes they just want to lay it out and just vent and just, just have it written down just once because they are maybe angry about something or sad about something, and that already helps them. And other times we will continue talking to them for a bit longer, and we will see them more often. And it really depends on what they want from us a little bit as well. So yeah, that's basically what we do on a day-to-day basis. And we do have psychologists on our team and therapists. So our volunteers, we will learn from them, and we can learn certain tricks and certain tools how to make someone feel comfortable, and professional boundaries and things like that as well. Without, of course, still, keeping that barrier of making it really therapy. We will always keep that barrier in place because that's really important to us.
So just a few things came up while I was listening to you just now, is the topic of mental health. And I would just like to say that that term carries a lot of weight, and sometimes it carries a stigma. And,
definitely.
Right. And so mental health, or is it just taking care of yourself? Because we are so encouraged to push ourselves and to overachieve. And the AHC Twitter tweets out these reminders like drink water, rest, go outside. And I know I need to be reminded of those things too. So self-care isn't necessarily a mental health issue.
No, I don't think so either. I think self-care is really important, but it contributes to your mental health. And I think what I've noticed is that younger generations, because I'm 38. I don't know if we've said that in the intro, but I'm 38. But we've seen younger people who are even more comfortable speaking about mental health and their mental health issues that they might have, even more so than that my generation is. So I'm really astonished sometimes looking at them and seeing them open up about mental health and being aware that self-care is about your mental health as well, because your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So it contributes. I think it should be in balance. It contributes to your mental health to be a whole person. I think around. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it should be in balance. And if we can contribute to that a little bit, just by reminding people to just that it's okay to cry sometimes, that we all have bad days. I think especially on social media, because social media does tend to be highlighting their successes and highlighting the good days. It's good to be remembered that we highlight the good days, but we don't always tell everyone about the bad days that we have as well. But everyone should remember that everyone does have bad days, and it's okay to have bad days, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to just give up for today, but try again tomorrow. That's fine. It's to not push yourself a little bit, and to be kind to yourself, not just kind to other people, but also be a little bit kinder to yourself as well. I think that's what we try to remind everyone about as well.
Something my analyst used to say is there's no escaping the human condition. And to remind people that you can't feel happy every day.
No.
Or every minute of the day. That's not natural. And
that
the human condition is ups and downs, highs and lows, and feeling all kinds of things. And sometimes I think our feelings can scare us, and we don't know what to do with it. And we can't always go to our parents or our spouse or our friends. And yes, I think that it is easier to speak with someone anonymously, where you don't have to worry about being judged. So I think it's also important for me to remind people of what you said about how your volunteers are trained. They are not therapists, but I think that they know enough to know the signs if someone does need more one-on-one professional guidance, that they can suggest that, recommend that, or find somebody. So not everyone needs a therapist. Sometimes it's just life. It's not pathology. It's just life.
Exactly.
And I know we can all be overwhelmed by our feelings at times. And when this all began, I was completely overwhelmed by BTS and the BTS fandom. And Carla, I've reached out to you just through Twitter DM, and you've totally calmed me down. And we all get into those complexes. We all do. I do. And you have this wonderful way you were sending me animated GIFs of BTS, and it just snapped me out of it. That's what happens when we're in a complex, is we need to get snapped out of it. And that's what you did. And I thank you for that. So we, a lot of times, and I'd like to say this to the people who are on the other end, it's not about giving advice all the time. A lot of the times it's just about listening.
Exactly. Definitely. Yeah, we do try to stay away a little bit even from giving advice. I think what we'd much rather do is listen to them, ask questions about why something is bothering them, or why does it make you feel like that, and have them come up with their own solutions, maybe a little bit. So instead of us, giving them the advice, we can steer them sometimes in like a little bit of a direction, help them a little bit on their way. But we definitely try to encourage our followers and the people who message us to come up with their own solutions a little bit. So maybe be their own therapist a bit. It's an exaggeration, of course, but listening is sometimes enough for people. And we are really inspired by this quote of from one of the BTS members, Namjoon, because he said in one of the ending speeches on a previous tour, one I wasn't there for because I wasn't an ARMY then, but he said, if we could reduce your pain from 100 to a 99, a 98, or just 97, then our existence is worth it. And we've really taken that to heart, because that's what we try to do, because we cannot take away all your pain. We cannot solve all your problems. We cannot make it all sunshine and puppies by just listening to you. But maybe we can make it a bit better by just being there and listening to someone and offering that safe space. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And I would like to talk about BTS's lyrics. You mentioned Namjoon and something he said at the concert. And I get asked a lot, do you really like their music? The answer is yes. I love their music. And I think I know I've mentioned this before, that when this all started with Dr. Stein's book, Jung's Map of the Soul, and I didn't know who BTS was, about a month later, they came here to the United States and they did a media tour where they were on television a lot, and they were on CBS This Morning, and who did a really nice segment on them. And then they were the musical performers on Saturday Night Live. And that's where they really got me. Those two performances that they did live, I think it was in April of 2019, and I'll provide links to the videos on YouTube, on Saturday Night Live's official YouTube channel. They have both performances. They performed their new single at the time, Boy with Love, and then they did Mic Drop. And I absolutely fell in love with them just based on those two performances. I was so impressed. They are so talented, not just musically, but dancing. They're incredible dancers. And sorry, there's sirens going by. I apologize. I live in Chicago and I have a soundproof window and you can still hear it. Wow. So, okay, we should let those go by.
Yeah, I'm hearing them.
There's always some crisis going on out there. Delivery vehicles, cranes, trucks. Okay. So Saturday Night Live performances, yes. And then some of their music videos have absolutely blown me away. And in fact, Dr. Stein called one of them biblical. And it was the one they did 2 versions. It was for On. The first video that they released for their single On, which was the lead single from Map of the Soul 7, was dancing in front of this concrete dam.
Yeah, it was in the United States, I think. I think it's in LA, where they recorded that. It was with a dance group from the United States as well. Mm-hmm.
And then they made a follow-up music video that was a narrative, and that's the one Dr. Stein called biblical. I'm so impressed by their creative team. Always their wardrobe, their makeup, their jewelry. They're just visually stunning. They're stunningly beautiful, and I love that. Now, that's not going to appeal to everybody, but it definitely appeals to me, and I adore them. So let's talk about their lyrics and how they are in Korean. Now, last year, they released their first single that was completely in English. It's called Dynamite, and that is the song that was nominated for a Grammy Award. Their new single that's coming out later this month, Butter, is going to be entirely in English as well. And I would like to give a shout out to the translators. Without them, I couldn't do what I do, who translate the Korean lyrics into English.
Definitely. Yeah.
So what would you like to say about their lyrics?
Well, there are a lot of different lyrics, of course, that we could dive into, but it's what attracts most of ARMY, I think, to BTS. I myself, I was not someone who was listening to K-pop. I wasn't aware of the whole BTS thing. I became an ARMY in 2017. It was new to me. I just happened upon them on Twitter or Instagram, I think, where a DJ I was following, he retweeted or he posted a picture, I think it was on Instagram, with them. And I saw all the messages under that picture, and it was crazy, like, ARMY does. We tend to become,
wasn't it?
Steve Aoki, definitely.
So I just want to interject this. Steve Aoki's version of Mic Drop, the BTS song Mic Drop, and that video is outrageous. I love it.
Definitely.
I could listen to that song all day.
That's what pulled me into being an ARMY. So I was following him, and he posted that picture. And first I thought there were a lot of people in that picture, because I thought, my God, there are 7 of them. That's a lot. Who even are these people?
Right.
And people were going nuts in the comments, and I was like, what's happening? So I got intrigued. So I started to go to YouTube and just try and find out what was going on. Now, I could have left it at that. I could have just, okay, these are like 7 talented people from Korea. I don't understand what they're singing, but have fun with that.
Right.
But there's something that pulled me in to know more. I wanted to know who is who. I just, like a lot of ARMY will tell you how they became an ARMY, we just wanted to know their names. So and then you'll watch more videos and you'll try to find out, okay, what are they singing about? So even though they initially pull in a lot of ARMY by the visual things, like what you said as well, people stay for their lyrics, I think. So there are a lot of lyrics that we could get into, but there are definitely some lyrics that write and where they speak openly about mental health as well, which is, well, I think groundbreaking for an Asian country to be so open about their own mental health issues they've had, and to be so vocal about that. That's really inspiring. So one of the songs that is, for example, that's what Min Yoongi, he's one of the rappers of BTS. To the people not familiar with BTS, a lot of every rapper within BTS, there are 3, they released their own solo work as well. So they had their own solo albums as well. And he had a mixtape called August D, and he wrote a song called The Last. And he really openly wrote about his depression and his compulsions and, some anxiety that he had. And he really openly wrote about that. And when you learn about that it's about something, that they're not just, shaking their ass on the TV, right. That it's not just, what a lot of rappers are making music about, that it's not just that it's a bit more substantial about, mental health, which of course appeals to us as Army Help Center a lot, but about mental health, but also societal critiques towards the Korean government sometimes, things they write about that as well, and that it's really about something. And of course the whole albums, Dr. Stein wrote another 4 books about it, going into like the lyrics of the songs as well, and how that connects to Jungian theory as well. So, they really have substance. And to us, it really speaks to us that it's about something. I've always personally been interested in music that's socially aware, that's about something. Of course, I do listen, on the radio to other music as well. It doesn't have to be deep and, meaningful all the time, but I really do appreciate it when it is about something. And the funny thing with BTS sometimes is that if you would just listen to the music and the melody and the rhythm of the song, you would think sometimes that it's like a happy song. Right. But then when you look into the lyrics, and it's completely the opposite of that. And I think that's so interesting how they do that. So I don't know if you've ever looked up the lyrics for the song Go Go.
No, I haven't.
Oh, I will send it to you after. And if you listen to that song, it's like really, really happy and really funny. And if you see them dancing, it's like, you think, oh, I could do this dance. It's really funny. But it goes, it's about people just throwing away their money and criticism of materialism. And, even though it sounds like a party song, right, it's just, it's really a critique of the materialism of the society of today. Mm-hmm. So like people are just throwing away their money on parties and, and stuff like that. And that's so funny because if you just listen to it and you don't understand Korean, you wouldn't have never guessed that was what it's about. I will send you the link to the lyrics later as well.
And which album is that from?
I think it's on BTS Love Yourself Answer.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But I will look that up.
Another thing that hooked me, and I know Dr. Stein as well, is the speech that RM gave at the United Nations. We were both so moved by that. And that was when the both of us came on board, really. So are you familiar with that? I'm sure you are.
Yes, I've seen it. I've tuned in live when they were there. So yeah, because that was in 2018, I think September. And I know a lot of people tuned in to just, be motherly proud a little bit on them being there, delivering this speech. And I actually have like a part of that speech as my screensaver on my computer as well. And those are like the words where he said, maybe I made a mistake yesterday. Hold on, let me see what it is. Yeah, maybe I made a mistake yesterday, but yesterday's me is still me. I am who I am today with all my faults. Tomorrow I might be a tiny bit wiser, and that's me too. These faults and mistakes are what I am, making up the brightest stars in the constellation of my life. So that's my screensaver, just to remind myself that even if I make mistakes today, it all contributes to the painting that's me, and really it inspires me, this speech that he wrote. And so proud.
So proud. And so Carla is referring to RM, that's his stage name. His real name is Kim Namjoon, and he is the spokesperson. Since there are 7 members in BTS, they have one spokesperson, and he speaks fluent English. I know the other members are learning English, and when I hear them speak English, I'm so proud that they would do that they don't have to, but that they would go through the effort of learning English. And so RM delivered that speech to the UN because he was the one at the time, the only one of them that spoke fluent English. So I'm glad that you said what you said about their lyrics and how important they are. And I was a little concerned because what I'm going to say might be a little controversial, and I mean no disrespect by it, but I know very much that they wanted to be nominated for a Grammy Award because they presented at the Grammys one year. I think that was in 2018, and then it was 2019. And then in 2020, they performed, but not as BTS. They performed backup.
With Lil Nas X, yeah.
Yes, because RM was part of that song that was Old Town Road that was nominated for a Grammy. He sang a part of that song. But the whole group did perform backup. And then this year's Grammy, 2021, they were nominated and they did perform. As I said, it was an English language song, but I don't think that song was very representative of their deep lyrics with messages. It was a very light kind of poppy dance song. Yeah. So the whole world was exposed to that, and I don't believe that song is representative of everything that they are. So I hope that I agree.
I agree with that. Personally, and this is my personal opinion, I feel like if we have to like nominate a song for the Grammys, I much rather have, for example, Black Swan to be that song to be nominated for the Grammys. But unfortunately, it is what it is. This is the song. They did submit the whole album, so I think a lot is on like the Grammys. I think they pick one of the songs of it, and of course, this is a song that was widespread on the radio. It was well played because not a lot of BTS music in Korean gets a lot of radio play, and this was in English, so it did get more radio play. But even though it's like a fun song, and they wrote it for ARMY, they did like the whole album of B. They did that for ARMY to make it like comforting to their fans because of the whole pandemic that's happening, and people are affected by that. So they wanted to comfort and uplift ARMY a little bit. So that's why they made that album. And that's also why Dynamite came out. And it's a happy song. It's a fun song, but it's not, in my opinion, the lyrical genius that they present in other songs.
Yes. Great way to describe it. Lyrical genius, indeed. So for me, BTS covers so much. I often point out how beautiful they are, how talented they are vocally and as dancers, and also as lyricists. And they share their lives with us. They have I don't know what to call it, a reality show, so it's kind of like a game show too. It's called Run BTS, and it comes out every Tuesday, and anybody could watch it for free on the V Live app. I think it's also on the Weverse app. There's also content you can purchase, and I've purchased a lot of it. There are documentary films, behind the scenes of their concerts, and they have cameras in their hotel rooms and backstage, and it's just wonderful to watch them and their creative process, and how they all seem to get along with each other, and they don't show anybody else. It's just them. Their managers and their support staff, they usually have blurred faces, and so it really focuses on BTS. And ARMY gets to watch all this content, and it can be overwhelming at times because it seems like there's new content coming out every day, and that's where the ARMY Help Center can come in and just help manage your stress.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, really important to remember as ARMY that you don't have to watch everything, because there is content coming out every other day almost. They are producing a lot of music, or they're maybe on a new song with someone else, or they're doing this or they're doing that, and it's okay if you miss something. It's okay to not be updated all the time, because there's so much, and it will just be there, and maybe you'll have time to catch up, but you don't even have to catch up I mean, everyone has their own lives as well, so it's really important to remember that, because I know that when I became an ARMY, I found it overwhelming a little bit as well. It's like, okay, where to start? Because there was so much, and you want to see everything, you want to know everything, but that's impossible. I don't think I've personally haven't been keeping up with Run BTS lately, because of life, and I am a mother, so my children, and they come first, of course. And of course, ARMY Help Center takes a lot of my time as well. But I do also work. I mean, of course, it's from home right now, but so that cuts some travel time. So I would have some more time to spend on Run BTS. But it's okay, and you have to be a little bit forgiving to yourself. It won't make you less of an ARMY if you're not updated all the time. So yeah, I think that's really important, especially for new ARMY, to understand, because you might feel a need to be updated about everything all the time, and that's just so much.
It is a lot, and I just want to say there is a Twitter account that I follow. It's called Ray. I'll provide a link to it in the description. I don't know the Twitter name, but this ARMY gives a recap every day, what you missed or what happened this day. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tweets to go through everything. So I look at that every day to see what happened, what content came out. And the content doesn't disappear. So if you fall behind on Run episodes or YouTube videos or tweets, they're always there for you to look at. And I want to stress that, just like you did, because it can be overwhelming. And as far as where to start, you can just start anywhere. And if you find something that you're interested in, you could check back for previous episodes, previous videos, previous tweets. They're all there. And they're definitely, I do get asked this question about the dark side of K-pop, and I would just like to say, yes, of course, K-pop has a dark side, just like everything else.
Exactly.
There's always another side to everything and everyone. So a dark side is not limited to K-pop. The NFL has a dark side. The Catholic Church has a dark side. The Jungian community has a dark side. I have a dark side. So we're not here to talk about the dark side of K-pop. Yes, it exists. We're not ignoring it. We're just choosing not to discuss it. I'm sure there's other people that would be willing to discuss it with you. We're not going to cover it. We recognize that it's there.
Exactly. I think it's important to know that it is there, but like you said, it's not limited to the K-pop world, and unfortunately, that is a narrative that we sometimes see in media, because things happen and they get highlighted in the media, and it's immediately the dark side of K-pop, and I think it has a lot to do with it being unfamiliar for Western countries. Like this is of course an Eastern country, so they are. It's easy to draw conclusions of one situation and make it immediately about the whole industry. And there are downsides. There are dark sides, and I mean it must be immense pressure to do what these guys do as well. I would not want to trade lives with them and have my life in the public eye like they are. It must be a lot of stress. So what astounds me is that they seem, at least, because of course I don't know them personally, but the way they show themselves to us in all their content, and they show a lot of glimpses behind the scenes, is that they seem to have a good support system in place in their company, where they can openly talk about their issues and their things that are bothering them, and that they have the support. They must have that, because otherwise I don't think they would be at this point if they didn't have like a good support system in place. And they still seem so humble, and so
they really do.
Yeah, also they are not afraid to be vulnerable, and I think that's really really important to show the world, because again, they are not ignoring like their dark parts, and of course they touch upon that, of course, in their their songs a little bit as well, which of course you've gone over with Dr. Stein in another episode, where they do talk about like the shadow and about the darker parts of which is of their lives, which is also a part of their life. And I think that's it's good to not ignore it, but it's also not something we're going to highlight now.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to cover here today before we wrap up?
I think you had a question on Twitter.
Yes, so Twitter questions. We did get this from Dr. Melissa W. She asks, I am curious about what area of Jung most Army ask the Army Help Center about. She says, I am a Jungian analyst and am having more and more people in their 20s interested in analysis.
Yeah, we actually don't get a lot of questions geared towards us about Jung. We did do like a sort of a short introduction about who is Carl Jung, but when people reach out to us, it's most of the time it's more about things they are struggling with. So currently, of course, the pandemic is a big subject. People are talking about, because the situation is so different in a lot of countries. In my country, we are starting to lower the restrictions so we can get out a bit more, but our followers from around the world, so they are from India, where the situation is devastating at the moment, and a lot of other countries it's really terrible as well. So we have more questions and more stories about things that directly affect our followers at that point. But who knows? Maybe if we do get more questions about it, we will probably redirect them to someone who's more knowledgeable than us, because we are not analysts. So we are still, learning about this. We are just listening to your podcast, and reading, of course, the books by Dr. Stein. Personally taught me a lot about the subject, but it will not give me enough knowledge to answer questions from ARMY about those subjects, I think. So we would probably redirect them to someone else who is more qualified.
Sure. Yeah. And I would like to add here that as a follow-up to Dr. Stein's book, Jung's Map of the Soul, An Introduction, even though the subtitle of that book is An Introduction, it is still a very heavy book. And I do recommend it, but not if you are young or brand new to Jung. So what Dr. Stein did with Chiron Publications, which he actually started that publishing company a long time ago, and then when he moved to Switzerland, he sold it to two psychiatrists in Asheville, North Carolina, Doctors Stephen Buser and Leonard Cruz. I've had them on the podcast as well. Yeah. But what they did is they created a series of small paperback books called Map of the Soul, and Volume 1 is Map of the Soul Persona, Our Many Faces. Volume 2 is Map of the Soul Shadow, Our Hidden Self. Volume 3 is Map of the Soul Ego, I Am. And then Volume 4 is a compilation of all three titled Map of the Soul 7, Persona, Shadow, and Ego in the World of BTS. You can find links to all of those books on Speaking of Jung's page, BTS page. It's a special page. If you go to speakingofjung.com, at the top of the page, you'll see the menu that's across horizontally across the top. It says Home, About, Archive, Blog, Books, and then BTS. Click on BTS and you'll find links to all 7 episodes that I've done with Dr. Stein, and then all of the books as well. So another thing I want to mention is that we give away a free book every Friday on Twitter through my Twitter account, Jungian Laura. It's not always a BTS book, but I try to give away a BTS book at least once a month. And this week, we'll be giving away Map of the Soul 7, Persona, Shadow, and Ego in the World of BTS. And how it works is a tweet will be posted on Thursday afternoon, Chicago time, and it will provide the instructions, which is to follow me and Chiron Publications on Twitter and to just retweet the tweet. And then on Friday, so that comes out on Thursday, and then on Friday, I use a random number generator to generate a number, and then that retweet, so say it comes up with number 57. So I go through all the retweets and I look for retweet number 57. That person's the winner. This is open to addresses worldwide. We now ship worldwide, and so you will receive a copy of the book. I'd like for you, Carla, to tell us about your presence on Twitter and how people can find you and the Army Help Center.
So if you want to send us a message just to vent out and you're speaking English, I think you could find us at BTS_AHC. If you have suggestions for projects we could do, or if you are in the media and want to talk to us, we do have a separate account for that because we don't want to clutter up our inbox on the other account. So that's BTS_AHC_project. So that's a different account. And we, of course, have a lot of other accounts. Like we said, we have 20 official accounts, but I'm assuming everyone who's listening to this is speaking English. So that would be the 2 go-to accounts, I think. And to just reach us at Army Help Center.
And for those who are not fluent in English, I've gotten a lot of criticism about that. It's just me here doing this podcast, and I don't have a staff, and I have had some volunteers translate some of the episodes I've done with Dr. Stein into other languages. They've transcribed and translated episodes 42, 44, 53, and 77. Again, there are links on Speaking of Jung's BTS page. And if anyone does want to translate this episode or any of the others, please write to me first. You can find me on Twitter at Jungian Laura, and I will be happy to discuss that with you. So I was wondering if there's anything else we haven't covered.
I think we've covered a lot already.
We have.
I mean, we could talk for hours and hours.
I know.
But that's just.
I know.
I think, I think it's really important to understand that there is still a stigma on mental health, that BTS is, talking about mental health and breaking a little bit of the stigma around it, especially in Asian countries. And a lot of people are getting inspired by that. And they always, ARMY always says that BTS will find you when you need them. So it will be at a time which is, at your time. They will find you at your time. You will not seek them out most likely, but they will find you one way or another. You will just stumble upon them, just like with you, Laura. You never thought to seek them out. It just happened upon you. It's the same with me. I was never intending to be a fan of a boy group from Korea at 38. I didn't think that was something I was going to do. I thought, that was behind me, but there are a lot of ages within the ARMY fandom, a lot of genders within the ARMY fandom, a lot of religions. So it's not limited to someone in, there's not a mold to be an ARMY. You don't have to be this or that to become an ARMY. But we just see like a lot of people from around the world with so different backgrounds, and within my own volunteers as well. I think we have all major religions represented within ARMY Help Center. We have a lot of volunteers who are now celebrating Ramadan. So we have to take care of their accounts a bit more, and then when it's Christmas time, they will step up a bit more, and it's a really symbiotic relationship, I think, where we are all from such different backgrounds, and things people you wouldn't put in the same room if it wasn't for BTS.
Right.
But we all have something that connects us, something we all are really enthusiastic about, and something we can find within BTS that helps people and maybe comforts them or give them joy. Just listening to their music, if it gives you joy, that's already, good. I mean, you don't always have to read all the lyrics and go deep with all the intent that's behind it. You can also enjoy their music if that's something that you're looking for.
Great point.
So, yeah.
Great point. And it's free too. You can listen to it on YouTube for free. You can stream it on Spotify for free.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carla.
Thank you for having me.
Please visit the website Speaking of Jung, that's JUNG.com, for more information on everything that was discussed in this episode. There you will also find all of the previous episodes of this podcast, which are available to stream or to download for free. This episode is also available on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, and it will be available later in the week on our YouTube channel, Jungian Laura. You can also listen to this episode on your Amazon Echo device, simply by saying, "Alexa, play Speaking of Jung on Apple Podcasts." Just be sure to pronounce Jung with a hard J. So with special thanks to Dr. Murray Stein, Dr. Stephen Buser, Jennifer Fitzgerald at Chiron Publications, Liz Jefferson at Inner City Books, to the entire BTS ARMY, and to Kim Namjoon, Kim Seok-jin, Min Yoon-gi, Jung Ho-suk, Park Jimin, Kim Tae-young, John Jungkook, BTS. I'm Laura London, and you've been listening to a very special quarantine edition of Speaking of Jung.
Your